So basically, we're going to start now, and this is session four of Let's Talk. And the past three have covered really, really neat subjects. Yeah.
Let me just also start with a disclaimer, because as a psychologist, I need to be very careful that you're not saying anything that you're going to later be sorry for in public if it is a therapy session. So I want to be very clear, this is not psychotherapy. This is educational, and I am just like any other human being doing a seminar. It's not therapy. Okay.
I think you do a really good job leading a very meaningful discussion. So we're so thankful and grateful, because this is session 4. The first one we dealt with just basic coping skills. The second one we dealt with emotions and how to navigate them. The third one was all about how to navigate grief for the things that are happening or not happening, and really to acknowledge the grief. And you know what's so interesting, Sarah, is I actually mentioned to someone else about, so they were discussing what they were struggling with, and I said, you know, there's a level of grief that everyone's experiencing. And the girl was like, I never thought of it as grief. Now that I know that, she's like, I'm a psychology major, I learned a lot of this, never thought of this as grief that I'm experiencing. And now that I know that, I'm going to deal with it differently. So these are really, really helpful discussions to have. And it's also really helpful for, I don't know, anyone here, anyone we're going to interact with, this is really helpful to understand more what different people are going through. I think it's made me more compassionate towards my own, you know, family dynamics, just having more knowledge of what everyone's parts that we're all experiencing. So thank you for this. Today we're discussing family, because guess what? Family is a huge subject. Everyone, thank God, you know, in this group, we're at home with someone maybe we love, or someone we used to love, or someone we want to love, or people we love, but they're, you know, we love, but right now we don't necessarily like. So Sara is going to take it away. She's been leading amazing conversations. This is meant to be interactive, but Sara, I'm going to give the mic to you. Thank you so much in advance. Like you said, this is not therapy, but this is definitely, yeah, the hands up. My hands up for Sara. I know that for me, these have been very helpful tools. And so thank you. Without further ado, the mic is yours. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. I really like what you said about compassion for yourself, compassion for others in your family. And yesterday when you talked about compassion and the Omer, the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting, and you know, I'm really realizing how so many of the Jewish traditions, I shouldn't even say traditions, but so much of what it is all about is helping us become better human beings. And what I can contribute are some specific techniques, but the overall framework fits right in with what you said yesterday. So
yeah. I think sometimes we don't realize that Judaism has that. We look at traditions or rituals separate from who we are as human beings, when really they're meant, the traditions and the rituals are meant to, they're for humans. So they're meant to be. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, you probably are in some way connected with a family, parent, single parent, parents of toddlers, parents of teenagers. You might be a teenager. You might be a college student. You might have roommates, not exactly family, but they're like family, and you're stuck with them right now. Elder people in the family. You might be the grandparent. You might have grandchildren. So first thing is, don't just do something, be there. I know you've seen signs about don't just be there, do something. This is don't just do something, be there. This is an opportunity for us to really just be there. And I figured what I'm going to do is take a few minutes and explain the physiology of what goes on with us. And then I have a lot of information, but I think I'll open it to questions, because I figure you guys have some certain questions. All right. But why is it important to calm yourself down about how your brains work, and what happens about when we think clearly and when we don't? For one thing, you'll like yourself better if you can calm yourself down. But don't beat yourself up for lapses, because we all have lapses. We're human. But much of our brain activity is based on neural circuits or habits. It's like a computer. If you're typing on your word processing program and you type in a word and you type in the first 3 letters, usually you'll get the rest of the word, a word pop up, some suggestions, because I think computers were designed after the model of the human mind, that we jump to conclusions, we jump to habits. Our neural circuits, just like the computer circuits, work on what they have seen the most. So whatever whatever neural pathways have been used the most in your brain is what is going to happen as a habit. And because we can't function if we have to decide and think about everything every minute. If you had to stop and think about everything you do every minute, you couldn't function. So habit formation is necessary. And there's a saying that says brain cells that fire together, wire together. Neurons, that's brain cells that are firing, they don't really know whether they're forming a good habit or a bad habit. They're just used to doing things together. Like, you wake up at 7 o'clock every morning when you're a kid because you're going to school. And that's the brain pattern that your brain has gotten used to. Even on weekends, your brain's going to remind you to wake up around 7. The neurons don't know the difference. So that's how we function ordinarily. Stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it puts us on high alert. It's what happens when something scary is going on. Back in the pre-civilization days, the tiger would come roaring and people would get alerted and have to be actively fighting, running away, or sometimes just stuck in your path. But your nervous system is on high alert. It's an adrenaline rush. Your brain is preoccupied with vigilance. So anything else gets put on the back burner, including digestion, immune response, logic, patience. Anything else defaults to habits. So if the habits inside your brain, and if the habits inside your brain around family are all constructive, then that's great. And you're probably not listening to this. You probably don't need this. But if the habits that you fall back on are not helpful, they're not the best, they come from old childhood interactions, from various things going on in your life, and they are not how you want to be, then that's when you need to calm down, regulate your dysregulated emotional system, your nervous system, so that you can think straight and problem solve effectively. The buzzword here is emotional regulation, and it's easier said than done, especially when you're triggered, which means you're being dysregulated. Something triggers you and sets off that habitual pattern, that neural circuitry in your brain that goes back to who knows where, but it's not helpful right now and it's not useful. How do we know when we're dysregulated? So what I'm going to do is show you a little picture. Let me see if I can screen share, of something that I use with children. You know what I need to do? Hold on one second. While I'm doing this, think about if you have questions about this. All right, let me screen share now.
I definitely already have some questions. I'm marking them down though, so patiently.
Okay, here it is. Okay, can you guys see this thermometer? Okay, this is a child therapy technique. I want to say that as far as specific techniques for calming down, breathing, stuff like that, you're going to find a lot of that on the internet. Just look up breathing techniques, calming down, meditation, things like that. There will be a lot. So I'm going to try to stick to the things that you probably wouldn't find ordinarily. These are child therapy techniques, so a lot of it refers to children. But remember that we are children too. This is about us as well. I have this in terms of children. What I would do is first set this up with the child, with the parent, with the family. Think about a word that represents how you feel when you're calm, when you're happy. What word would that be? And let's say you choose calm. Yeah. And then I would ask, what color would that be? And if you're a child, I'd ask you to color it in, that color. So somebody want to volunteer a color for calm and happy?
Red.
Sorry?
Red.
Red.
I thought of yellow.
I thought of green.
Green.
Red, yellow, green. Okay, it doesn't really matter. And the point is that it could be different for everybody. It can be different for different people in the family. Doesn't matter. It's just a way to help that person connect to that feeling and that sensation. And last week I talked about imagination, and I think I showed the video about imaginative rehearsal. So that the more, so the more you rehearse something in your imagination, the more it becomes a habit. It becomes a routine because your brain cells are firing in that routine pathway. So the more you look at this, talk about it with the child, think it through, the more they connect that calm, happy, level 1, because people use different words and different colors, when you're talking about it at an important time, it helps to use the level. So level 1 is calm, happy. You don't really need to do anything about it. It's just helping the person, child, adult, get a sense of this is where you want to be. This is the feeling that feels good. Next level, I'll jump up to level 5. So think about a time when you were furious. You were past the point of no return. All you could do is contain the damage. You can't even talk. You storm out of the room. If you're a child, you run out of the classroom. You push your friend. You throw the food across the room. Depending, if you're 2 years old, you throw the food across the room. If you're 22 years old, you throw it in the garbage. But think about that, and think about a color. I won't ask everybody for your color, but think about a word and a color that would go with that. So you have a sense of the anchors at both ends of what it feels like to be calm and what we're talking about with the top level furious. At that top level, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember this song, You Can't Talk to a Man with a Shotgun in His Hand. It's beyond the point of discussion. Don't try. Wait till the kid calms down. Some time out. There are some techniques if you're dealing with kids involving like rolling them up in a blanket, weighted blankets, things like that. Occupational therapists are good at that kind of thing, of how you deal with that. But don't try to talk to them. Won't work. Don't try to talk to yourself either. Don't give any credence to anything you're thinking when you're in that state. And don't say anything that you'll be sorry for later, because once it's out of your mouth, you can't take it back. So those are the two ends. In the middle, level 2 is when something's bothering you. Somebody dropped something on the floor, or someone spilled something and didn't clean it up, or a kid took your pencil, your sister took your pencil and didn't tell you, or something like that. You're annoyed, you're bothered, your body might start to get tense. The important thing at this stage is for you as the adult to learn to notice that, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit uptight. And if it's a child, notice, you know your own kids. If you're a teacher, you know your own classroom students. Notice when they're starting to become tense. You might make a suggestion for something, that they want to take a minute, take a breath, whatever. But at this point, it's a level that usually you can handle easily yourself. You don't need any major interventions. But just be aware you're not at your best. Next level is when something gets a little bit more intense. the little sister or little brother has come into your room for the 5th time. The child has not brushed their teeth for the 6th time. Actually, it should never go up to 6 times. You should have once, twice, and some consequence, some reward if they do it right away, and a consequence or lack of reward if they don't. And we can talk about that another time, a reward system, especially now when you're stuck home with them. But level 3 would be you're frustrated, or if it's a child, they're frustrated, but they've learned enough coping skills, or you've learned enough coping skills or tools to calm yourself down. They don't need to go running to you, or if they do, you can just quickly remind them, what tools can you use? What can you do about this? And they can handle it themselves. And it helps sometimes to develop a menu of tools with your kids of what are the things you can do to calm down by yourself. Excuse me. Level 4 is the next stage. It goes up one notch when the brother or sister has come in one more time, even if after they said no, and this kid comes screaming, "Ma, he came into my room again." At that point, the kid knows they're going to lose it, or as an adult, you know you're going to lose it, and you need somebody to help. If it's a child, it's usually go get an adult or big brother, big sister, something like that. If you're the adult, it's go get a friend, go get a calm down app, go get some outside help. And there are techniques and things you can help a child with, things that maybe at level 3 they could do themselves, like breathing or counting or playing with Play-Doh, coloring, drawing, things that they can do by themselves. You just give them a suggestion, reminder. But if they're on level 4, they might need you there with them to help them breathe, calm down. And you might need a friend there with you to listen to you, hear it out. No matter how stupid you feel, a good friend is going to listen and help you calm down so that you don't. The idea is not to get to there if you can help it. Okay. So my point is this is a handy tool. It's something you can go over with family members if they're willing, especially if you have children. You can explain that this is something that you're all going to do, and you're all going to print one out. I can email this to everybody. You can print them out and color them. Afterwards, I'll figure out how to.
We're just going to ask if you could send it to us, because I think this is so helpful and so practical, even just as a visual, even on our fridge, to remind us about it.
Right. And it gives you a language to talk about, because you can say, you're in the middle of working on something. I know, at least one of you sent me a note saying, this is a tough time. I have to get things done right now. The semester's ending. So you can say, look, I've got a million things I have to do. I'm starting to get upset. I need to take some breaks. I'm at level 3. Can you find something to do while I find some way to calm myself down? And
I love that idea, because I feel like you're then you're modeling to your kids that self-regulation, that you're also experiencing stress, right?
yes.
That we're all human, and I'm also going to lose my cool. And right now, even for kids to know, okay, I need to back that down. I need to dial it back. I need to settle down. And my mother's human also, and my father.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm so glad, Sarah, that you brought this up. I feel like this on a daily basis because I still work full time. And I was on my computer literally till 1 o'clock in the morning because I didn't get my work done, during patches of the day. I mean, I still have to help my girls. So, and this is, as much as I know, I've got a PhD, I know, but it's like to be reminded of those boundaries, and that, I'm trying to self-regulate in front of my children, like Manya said, giving that example, but I find myself every day just losing it, not in front of my kids, but I'm losing it in my head. Like I'm just want to cry. But this really helps. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope this can help. And also, all right, I'm not sure. Do you guys see me on the screen too, or only this picture? Me as well. Okay, then I'll leave it up for now, because this ties in with, this was how do you know when you're dysregulated? So this is one way for you to tell yourself and for other family members to be able to tell and communicate with each other. And then, so what do we do about it? Back to last week with the neural pathways and the habits and the mental rehearsals. There are strategies for once you reach this level, which is what we've talked about, a menu of strategies like breathing, coloring, drawing, play with Play-Doh, different things like that. And then go for a walk. These are the strategies that you can look up. I'm not going to go into a lot of them, but you can look those up or share with each other. These are things that people ordinarily know. But the other part is preventive. What can you do to prevent getting beyond level 3? Yeah. And that has to do with developing positive habits as an everyday thing that you rehearse in your mind. I mean, some of them you would physically do, like go for a walk, do some breathing, but you can also rehearse in your mind, you know that, just like if you know that you're going to be giving a lecture in front of 100 people, you're probably going to mentally rehearse that a day or two in advance, or even longer in advance. You're going to imagine yourself getting there, taking a breath, holding your notes, remembering, and all of that. And the more times you imagine going through that, the easier it's going to be when you actually walk down that aisle and step up on the podium, because your brain will have already been there. Same thing for what's going on now. In the first couple weeks, it was a complete unknown, and we didn't know how long this was going to last or what was happening. By now, we know that this is going to go on for a while. We don't know how long. There's still uncertainty, so our brains are under stress. Uncertainty is one of the stressors for our brains. But we do know that we're going to be stressed. We have work to do. We have housekeeping to do. We have cooking to do. We have shopping to do. What happens when you want to go shopping for something and they don't have it? You place your order. You go pick it up and they didn't have half the items. Things like that happen, but they're beginning to be a little bit more predictable. And so can you work through in your mind imagining a situation like that? Imagine having a child need you at that moment. Imagine something going wrong. And rehearse breathing, meditating, yoga, whatever works for you. Another preventive idea is to set a family schedule, including things like alone time and recess. I like the idea, somebody gave me an idea of having, quote, recess at home. Okay, these 15 minutes are recess. You get to have a recess, just like in school. You might get to have screen time at that point. I have to share, I spoke to my daughter the other day, and she said she has 2 little kids. And she said that other parents she has spoken to say that they are now limiting screen time for their children to 1 hour per hour. Yeah, 1 hour per hour.
Sounds a little bit more realistic.
Yes. And
I would say I'm a big fan of timeouts, but the timeouts are for me.
Yeah.
Like, I need to find a quiet corner, an iced coffee, a glass of wine for like 15 minutes just to
Yes. Yeah. So families who would never have sent their kids off with a screen, families who have worked real hard to keep their kids from even knowing that there is such a thing as an iPad, are now limiting it to 1 hour per hour. You do what you have to do. So family schedule, all right, for setting up a family schedule, don't do it by yourself. That's something that needs a family meeting and having everybody together and talking about it and figuring out what works. And things like communicating, compromising, negotiating, family cooperation, problem solving. So that takes me to something else, because let me find this, because that is easier said than done as well. I'm going to find, all right, you're still seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Let me just stop the share for a moment and find the cooperation page. One moment. Here it is. Now let me figure out how to share my screen again. Do you guys still see me?
Yes. Yes, Sarah. So I have a question while you're looking. So these intersect with the part of the executive functions that have to deal with cognitive flexibility. Am I correct?
Exactly. Yes. Mhm. Okay, I can't figure out how to find.
So just to put a caveat in all this, so if someone has a child with any type of learning disability,
Mhm.
the executive functions that are impaired neurologically is cognitive flexibility. So what
Yes.
we're talking about then becomes exasperated. So the
Yeah.
audience we're addressing right now definitely is an audience primarily without learning disabilities or disabilities.
Well, not necessarily.
No.
No. In fact, I learned some of these techniques. I certainly learned the thermometer technique from a child therapist who specializes in autistic children on the autism spectrum, for whom it's even more important.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that they don't work for children who have autism, ADHD, bipolar disorder, other difficulties, neurological difficulties. It's that for typical children, neurotypical children, it's easier. You go
It's
through
just
it
easier. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
few times,
Yeah.
and you get your reward pretty easily.
Yes.
For children who have these disabilities, it's hard. Yeah.
It's just, yeah. Yeah.
For husbands, spouses, family members who have any of these disabilities, it's going to be harder. You don't have to be a child to have, autistic spectrum disorder, ADHD, bipolar disorder, anything like that.
I was also thinking that probably there are so many other stressors or factors that are going to alter how we navigate this. Meaning, for one person, it's, let's say, fear because they have elderly parents or they're elderly. And for another person, financially, this is so overwhelming. So that added layer almost becomes like a disability, meaning like,
Yes. Yeah, your brain doesn't work right.
yeah, because you're I feel like you'd be clouded. I mean, I was speaking,
Yes.
let's say someone who's immune compromised or right. There's so many layers
Right.
that are coming together.
Yes, exactly. And it makes sense because any kind of stressor is going to impair our ability to think flexibly and is going to cause our brains to revert back to habits, to the familiar neural circuits that don't require thinking.
So I want to ask you one thing, because you mentioned about habits. Habits, I understand the way the brain, from your teaching, there's the brain wires, like you said, it creates these patterns and the wiring, for lack of, and they become habits, ingrained habits. Is it possible that a one-time like trauma can wire a habit? Is a habit only something that's repeated, or can a trauma? This is just a question.
A very intense trauma will, I'm not sure I have I'm not a neurologist, so I'm not sure my analogy is totally correct, but it's like a lightning bolt to the electric circuit.
Okay, so it could create a wiring.
It prints in a very powerful electric circuit.
Because I was thinking.
But wait, let me finish.
Yeah.
But what happens after makes a difference.
Okay.
That's why there is a lot of training for first responders and people like that of how to help someone to come back into the here and now and the moment as quickly as possible, if it's possible. I mean, if it's an ongoing trauma, an ongoing stressor, if it's a war, if it's ongoing abuse, I mean, there depends on the situation. But to the extent that you don't reinforce that habit, that I shouldn't call it a habit yet, but to the extent that you don't reinforce that neural pathway
Or that experience.
or that experience,
So,
yes.
which would mean like working through a trauma would be very helpful for people, because then it doesn't kind of become anchored or cemented.
It's tricky.
Okay.
Yes, because you run the risk. Yes, because you run the risk of having them, if you think, oh, let them just tell me about it and then they'll work through it. You run the risk of having them slip back into that neural pathway and just reinforcing it and making it stronger.
Mostly thinking about professional. I'm not thinking about like someone like me. I'm saying I'm just curious from a bigger picture. Very
yes.
cool.
So there are ways. What's important is being able to find ways to help a person reprocess that trauma. Go reactivate that neural pathway, but with a different state of mind, with a different framework, so that it doesn't quite go the same way. Each time it's a little different and a little better, and eventually a person, ideally, can put the past in the past. They don't forget it. They know it happened, but it's not happening to them at the moment, like in PTSD. Okay. Can you guys still hear me? I think Manya is frozen. You're muted. Okay. I'm going to try to share my screen again. Let me figure out how I do this. I don't know how to. All right, it's over here somewhere. Here it is. Okay. Can you see this? Anybody? Can you hear me?
We hear you and we see it.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me put this over here. So I was talking about creating a family schedule and how to be able to listen to each other, talk to each other without killing each other. And you may or may not have heard about iMessages. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about iMessages. A lot of it is incomplete and wrong. So I want to go over it to be more accurate, because a lot of what you're going to see is not fully accurate. The formula, well, let's see. Somebody have an example? I mean, I can pull up an example, but somebody have an example of something where someone has done something that, okay, go ahead.
I feel angry when you ignore me. I would like, let's see, I would like to be able to express myself without being shut down.
Okay, that's good. Let me help you translate that into something that,
I'm asking you to, I would like to ask you to please hear me out.
Okay. Can you say that a little more clearly with authority?
I would like to be listened to and have you hear me out. Or I want to be heard, and I would appreciate you hearing me out.
I want you to
hear me out before and not shut me down.
Okay, can you describe what that would look like? I want you to what?
I'm actually applying this to an actual situation.
Yeah, okay. All right, let me help. Tell me if this sounds right. I feel, what was the word you used?
I feel angry.
I feel angry when you don't listen to me.
Don't listen to me.
When I talk and you act like you haven't heard me.
Right.
I would like you to stop, look me in the eye, and nod your head when I'm speaking right away. I will ask you twice, but I want you to do it within the second time. If you do not, or if it happens again, I will, whatever, you will lose your token. You will go to timeout. This is the part that people tend to leave out. And without something like this, it carries no weight. I mean, ideally, you would be in a situation where people just want to be nice and do what you ask because they want to. But if we've hit this point with a child or with an adult, then you usually do need a consequence. So be prepared for that.
My situation, I was actually thinking of my spouse, and I was thinking, well, I could say, if this happens again, I'm going to need to leave the room, calm myself down, and when you're able to talk to me, then you'll know where I'm at.
Okay, that sounds good. And if that is a consequence that impacts him, then you'll see some results. If it doesn't impact him, then you'll probably have to have a discussion about it, at another time when you're calm and he's calm and you're both at a level 1 or 2. And here's an example of a child, 10-year-old, bullied in school, and saying stop didn't help. And instead he said, here is what he said: if this happens again, I will tell the teacher. Okay, so in terms of the thermometer chart that I had up before, this child apparently knew that he was at a level 3 and he was going to hit a level 4 if it continued. Level 4 was go get adult help. So he was able to handle it using iMessages and with a serious consequence. Okay. So again, I can send this around as well. This would be a link. This was one of them on the internet, but as I said, you're going to see lots of stuff on the internet. It's not necessarily the best. I don't know how to get these off my screen. I don't know what I did here. Okay. All right, let me open it up to questions at this point. There are a couple of chats. Let me see if I can figure it out. Okay. A couple people have to leave. Thank you. Bye-bye. Let me stop sharing and come back to where everyone is. If you don't have questions, then I do have one more thought, which is how...
I'm wondering, I do have a question. Different ages are going to react differently to this. Would you say this is something that you create, talk about habit, create a culture or habit in your own home with this, using these techniques? Like,
yeah, and now is a good time because everybody's stuck home. Yes, it will be easier with young children because, you know, although they have less self-control, but they're more amenable.
Right.
It's the teenagers.
I actually think teenagers would appreciate awareness of their own, like it helps them self-regulate too. I wouldn't do it when they're angry, but it's a great.
Right. Right. When someone is in the middle of being angry, then they can't do any of this reasonably. They can't figure it out, which is why developing some habits beforehand of relaxation, meditation. There are some good apps that are out there for meditation that are useful and don't take too long. They take 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes a day. Even the Sphera app, I actually did set that up. And it is. Mm-hmm. It is, yes. Mm-hmm. Or rather than meditation, you can just tune in to your body. 'Cause the idea of meditation is to be in the moment, not thinking about the past, not planning for the future. There's a time and a place when it's good to plan for the future. But for giving your brain that kind of break, it can take a moment.
Did you give us techniques for more grounding yourself in the moment? I think in class 1 or 2. Which one was it?
First class, it was some
First
breathing
class.
techniques. I was just going to try something right now.
Go ahead.
And there are all kinds of techniques, and you'll be able to find those and see which one works for you. But one that I like that's very simple is just simply tuning into your body. And you can start at the top of your body, or you could start at the bottom of your body. I like to start at the top, but it doesn't really matter. And you just take a breath, get comfortable in wherever you're sitting. You can leave your eyes open or closed. Sometimes it helps to close them. And just turn your attention to the top of your head. And just notice your scalp. Notice what it feels like. Notice the skin on your forehead, your ears, your head itself, inside your head. As you breathe in, notice how much space there is inside your head for a breath. And as you breathe out, notice what it feels like to just loosen up your jaw and your neck and your shoulders. Just check into your shoulders, see where they're at. And then going down your body, notice your arms. See if your arms, your hands can be loosened up a little bit. Imagine they're like spaghetti, loose. And although you're sitting straight, notice how you can let go of some of the muscles in your back. You don't need to keep it all that tense. You can loosen that up. Notice the state of your chest, your lungs. You don't need to make it do anything, but just notice it. Notice your abdomen. Notice your hips, your thighs. Notice how the buttocks feel sitting on the chair or whatever you're sitting on. Notice the thighs and the knees. Are they bent? Are they straight? Are they comfortable? And just go further down. Notice your calves, your ankles, your feet, your toes, and just pay attention to them. Wiggle them if you feel like it, not if you don't. But just check in. Hello, toes. Hello, ankles. And just noticing your body, paying attention to it. And that's it. When you're ready, open your eyes if they were closed, or take a breath and come on right back. Anybody have any feedback?
I find in the beginning it's a little uncomfortable. Like, we're so not used to doing it. For me, I think I'm always so busy moving, doing, going, running, coming, that I feel like it's sometimes not simple. I can't see myself doing this regularly, but I could see myself definitely trying this when I'm like high up in the stress factor, to trying to ground and pull myself down. That's the way I see it. But it's very cool to try.
Yeah, and I was going through it very quickly. And when I do
I understand that.
full session, I take more time, and I make sure at every stage of how the person is doing, if they're able to be there with the sensation, or what I need to do to help them to be in that moment. Because your brain is going to try to take you somewhere else, but usually paying attention to what's going on in your body brings you back to that moment, because it's going on right that moment. Any other responses?
Yeah, Sarah, by the time you got to the knees, that's when I finally started blocking out everything else. So it did work, but it took a while with me. And I'm kind of like Manya. I'm a very accelerated person. I want to believe in these things, and it's kind of hard for me sometimes, but I noticed that, yeah, by the time we got to the knees, I was like, oh, thank goodness, I was like, oh.
Okay.
I like the way you described as being an accelerated person. I like that, that adjective, because it's a really good one, because and I think also our lives have been so accelerated. And now we're like forcing to dial it all back. We're being put in a place to dial it all back. So it's really interesting to gain these methods and techniques at a time where we can maybe actually really get in the habit of using them.
Yes, it is hard. And I don't know how many minutes this took, but I would imagine 3 minutes at most, which was less time than I ordinarily would do it with somebody in a session. I usually take 10 to 15 minutes with someone. So I don't know if Manya, you're frozen if you are going back to see how long it was. Oh,
I figured out how long it was. I can't, but I can't imagine doing it for longer, just based, like some people, like they can handle going and sitting and meditating and yoga. It's not my best. Like
sometime I'd like to try it with with either each of you separately or with people together, but not being recorded, because
I get that. We could also not record. We can stop the recording, but that's very possible. I'm cool with
but
that.
just sometime when you have time and I can really do a full relaxation session.
Wow.
Because that's what it really is. It's not quite as good as getting a massage, but it's close. You start to learn how to notice which muscles are tight and let go of them and loosen a particular muscle, ones that you didn't realize that you had tension there.
Sara, I have a question. So is this something we do to ourselves? Because I don't see myself saying this out loud. What I could do is record myself and then play it back so that I'm directing myself or something along those lines. But I don't know if I have the discipline to go through that.
No, and you wouldn't at first. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. And you wouldn't. And yes, when I do sessions with people in my office,
I wanted to add,
I sometimes record them and they take them home. I record them on their phone and it takes like between 10 and 20 minutes and they can take them home and listen to them again and again. And there are some apps that, there are a couple, I'll write the names down on here that I know are good, are worth checking out. There's, and they often have a free month or so. Oh, my spell checker keeps wanting to change this word here. There's one called Mindscape. Let me see what they are. Here, these are 3 that I have tried that are worth attempting. There are lots of others. Some are good, some aren't. You might be able to just go on YouTube and find a good one, a good YouTube freebie. Some will work for you, some won't. When they're up there like that. But even the ones you pay for, some are good, some are not. But I will be happy to do this with you guys. Actually, here.
I'm gonna put these posts on to the description, the ones you just shared. I think that's great.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And maybe people can contact you, like maybe we can, whatever, do, and I could shut the recording now, but maybe we could do this where people really want to show up for that.
Yeah.
Session like that.
I would be happy to do that individually in a group. I mean, it helps. Individually might be better because then you can give me feedback and I can spend more time on a certain area, and certain area might trigger something for a certain person, so that you're able to give me some feedback. And again, I wouldn't consider it a therapy session. You guys are my friends. It would just be teaching you something that I happen to know how to do and that could be of help to you.
I just wanted to add that I know that Manya and Sharon have mentioned that life before was very hectic, and now it's kind of like this, almost like your brakes have come, been hit, and you have to like suddenly pull yourself back from all this activity. I find that I had a very busy life before, but my life has stayed just as busy. It's just shifted from one style of busy that I knew to a style of busy that I don't, that I'm not familiar with. And that's where I'm finding problems. I'm having difficulty with that. It's that shift.
That's a good way of putting it. And yeah, Manya, go ahead and speak because I think you'll answer this.
I think that what you're saying is so real. It's a different type of busyness, and almost it's less external chaos and more internal chaos, and the things that are defining us as people are the core identity of who we are, I think, is in a way more chaotic, right, in a certain sense, because there's less distractions for everyone. So now we're like really facing, I relate, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's what's such a challenge. But I would love, Sara, if you have some, before we wrap up, if you have a few more minutes, but if you could give us some, just to address Tamara's specific point, which is super relevant, and I'm hearing from a lot of people at different ages and different stages in life.
So am I understanding correctly? You're saying it's the shift in routines and in what to expect that's throwing you off, plus the uncertainty of how much longer is this going to go on. I mean, if it's a shift for 2 weeks, like a vacation, okay, you can shift. But if it's a shift forever, well, okay, that's different. But it's not going to be forever, we think. So is it a month, 2 months? Yes, uncertainty is really, really, really tough. And that's why knowing what level of, and some people are more unnerved by uncertainty than others, but we're all somewhat unnerved by it. So it's keeping you from thinking clearly in the moment. And if you have children at home and we're not used to having children at home, then that is a real, I don't even have the word for it.
You know what? One of my younger ones said, literally in frustration this morning to me, is like, with his older brother's home, suddenly there's this added layer of dynamics where like they all think they're kidding around because they're like 18, 19, 20, 16, whatever, they're older. And he is like, I can't do anything on my own anymore. Like they're constantly there. Like I've had it. He literally came to me. He's like, I need to talk to you privately. He's like, I had enough. Like they're constantly, before this, I was able to do what I need to do, go through my routine. And suddenly now there's constant feedback from others. So there's, on my end, two aspects I did. First of all was validating, hearing, and a physical touch, hug, acknowledging what he's experiencing. And then I also kind of said, okay, I will make sure while you're in school today to have this conversation with your brothers. But my next step, though, is to give him some tools to cope. And not just tools to cope, but to also understand that he's also gaining from this experience. He's going to be learning how to deal with people, learning how to stand up for himself. He even expresses that I have no defenses. They're older than me, they're bigger than me, they're faster than me, they're sharper than me. So I have to, on the one hand, educate the older kids to be more sensitive to him, that all of a sudden he's feeling very helpless. Okay, he's feeling like everything's out of control. And that's uncomfortable. I was so happy actually that he pulled me aside to talk to me about it, because it showed like he was.
I was going to say, isn't that wonderful that he knows, and you must have set that up as a family way you do things.
I hope, I don't know, but it's also his personality. Thank God, whatever. But the point is that now I have to also basically tell him that he needs to also lighten up and not take every comment internally and put up a wall. And he needs to, not a wall, because wall sounds too strong, but he needs to put up a chain link fence, like you could allow it in, you could hear it, but it doesn't have to settle. So that's my next step. I didn't want to do that this morning because he had to go to school. B, I also knew he was still in his like frustrated, angry, like out of control. He did it in a controlled way and a very appropriate. Like he pulled me aside. We had a conversation in my room alone. Someone else came in to disturb. I said, no, sorry, we're having an important conversation right now. And so he really did express himself maturely and properly. But I also need to say to him, lighten up, kid. You know, but I don't want to, but that at that moment, I felt like it was validation and acknowledgement and telling him that he's not lost. And also I said, I understand this must be really challenging. You know, this is hard. Now you're in a different place and that's hard. So now we got to move it to the next level to empower him with tools that are practical, that he could speak up for himself, that he could also not take every single comment internally. And that's also important.
Very good point. I'm going to show you, you brought me to something I didn't think we'd get to today. I'll just show it to you. But to validate what you're saying, yes, that is wonderful. And you as the parent also need some support too. And Tamara also as a parent, you're saying that, you know, this is a role that it's got pieces to it that you've never had to do before. And how do I do them? And where do I get my support for this? And all of that. Yes. Yeah. And you're coming up with things. I also like what you said, Manya, about pointing out to him that there's something in it for him. He will benefit. I loved what you said yesterday, Manya. It was something about we are not meant to be the same after an experience. We are intended to have changed. That's the whole idea. Hopefully for the better. So if you can keep that in mind for yourself and for your other family members, of helping them to see how learning how to cope with this will benefit them. If you do that for yourself and help the other family members go through that, of how will this help, literally just ask them when they're in a calm place and you can talk to them, what can you gain from this? One day this will be all over at some point, in whatever form. And how will you have become a better person as a result? What will you have learned, both for yourself and for your child? Let me find, I think it's this one. Yeah, okay. Here. This is too much to go through all at once right now. And I haven't actually done all of these myself because some of these are still new to me. But these are things that you might not find on the internet. These are more techniques for child therapists. Ways to ground yourself. Simple things like a little drawing. Have an area where they have things that they can be doing that are quick and easy, not a huge piece of paper to draw on, but a little one, an index card, just, to keep you going for a few minutes. Like this would be the calm down corner. Play-Doh, a fidget tool, something like that they can just go and quiet themselves down. Some people have, was it you, Sharon? I saw you have one of those chairs that kids can sit on. That's like a cocoon. Yeah, something like that. The thermometer I showed you, the emotional thermometer. A sensory bag, again, to help kids to cope. And these are techniques, and I feel like we're at the end right now, so I'm not going to go into all of these, but maybe sometime I should do this then, next time. Go through all these specifically with you of what are the different techniques you can teach a child. Some of them are quick and some of them take longer. But one that I particularly liked, I'll mention it now, is cloud watching. Just lie outside in your yard and look up at the clouds and talk about the clouds as they go by. What do they look like? How do they feel? How does it feel? How would it feel to be there? Just ways of being in the moment with a child. So there are a number of techniques. I can go over those with you. I'm not going to send this because these are just shorthand, and without knowing what they mean, it's not going to be good.
Can we next week maybe pick this up next week. And then maybe possibly next week also discuss for adults some of these ideas.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, they apply to adults. I learned them in a child therapy seminar, but there are ways to be, mindfulness means being in the moment, not thinking about the future, not lost in the past, but right now. And ways to do that are your senses, focusing on, and there are ways to focus on eyes, ears, nose, that sort of thing. And you can do that as an adult or as a child. All of those things can be done either. So sure. Okay, so let me put this down. Stop the share. We'll be back. Okay, thank you. I will say goodbye. Manya looks like had to leave.
Thank you. No, thank you so much, Sarah, for everything. Really, 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 you're giving us invaluable tools.
Well, I'm glad. It's good for me.
Peace and harmony into our lives in a practical little snippets each week. And each week I feel like we're building skills. We're building skills.
Oh, good.
So we're going to come out of this stronger.
Well, my challenge is to see if I can do any of this with my grandchildren over the internet.
Wow. Let us know how it goes.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And
Bye.
good luck, and be kind to yourself.
I'll try.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye, Manya. Bye, Tamara. Bye,
Bye,
Sarah.
guys. Bye, everyone.